Greetings from Ann Arbor, Michigan, a great state and a great place of the great USA. Welcome to our podcast series, and I am promising you that this series is going to be very enlightening, very inspirational, a lot of fun, and something that will really, I think, help you as you walk your path to holiness. This series is going to have a lot of different things that you probably have questions about, but maybe had the opportunity to ask, especially about religious life. Like, what do they do all day? Who are they? Where do they come from? What's it like when a young woman enters religious life? So stay tuned as we will discuss where sisters come from today. Welcome back to LE Digital. And I'm Sister Joseph Andrew, the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, and this is part of our podcast series, The Truth Shall Set You Free. Now, there is a podcast that preceded this one. So if you haven't seen that one, you might want to watch that one first. And that particular one, I was interviewing Mother Assumpta. And Mother is the Mother Superior of our community, Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist here in Ann Arbor. And we go back very much through my religious life and many, many shared beautiful things, including an amazing providence of God that we certainly would have never anticipated, that the two of us with two others, Sister Mary Samuel Handworker and Sister John Dominic Rasmussen, were able, again, by God's grace, to found a new branch of the Dominican order, and in the order that has to do with the teaching sisters in the Third Order Dominicans. And I broke those branches down for you also in another podcast. But in this one, Mother, it's going to be fun to discuss with you the beginnings of our community. So I am going to let you take the lead, and then I'll kind of jump in and out, and because it's such an amazing story, and as we have said so many times, none of us would have ever anticipated that. None of us would have ever dreamt it up, but when God wants something, and you remember this, He keeps nagging and nagging at you, because deep in your heart, He is speaking. And if you're prayerful, you take it to prayer, and it takes a lot of prayer to finally say, this is God's will, and we will do the best that we can. And if it is indeed His will, He will bless it. So, Mother, where would you like us to start?
I don't know. Oh, my goodness. You gave me kind of a difficult topic to even try to put it in a nutshell, as my father would say. But, all you can say in your life that you hope that you always do God's will.
Yes.
And there's a lot that goes into that, and you never know. But there's one thing that confirms that it was God's will, because I really believe when the four of us felt that it was God's will to make a new foundation, because we came from a wonderful Dominican community in Nashville, wonderful, beautiful, had superb formation, a good training, good education, all of that, and to step out in faith. But all I can say is that it's if you knew what all was involved in doing it, you probably wouldn't do it. You just take a leap in faith and let God work it out. But all I can say, when we got permission from our own community, from the Vatican, we had a benevolent bishop in John Cardinal O'Connor, that once the decision was made, all I can say is that God took over. And if I had any doubts about what we're doing, it was almost like, it was so incredible when I think that all the blessings that we have received, like He was saying, this is needed, get on with it. He was not just doing it, but pushing us.
Yes, He pushed.
He was just,
God,
we
God
were on
can
the
push
fast
when He wants something.
It was on the fast track, because we had a year to pray about it, which was very prudent of the community.
Can I go back just a sec?
Oh, yeah.
How did we, and why did we, and of course I know the answer, but for our viewers and listeners, why did we go to New York?
Oh, okay. Well, I think the reason we went to New York is that I had helped Cardinal John O'Connor with the Sisters of Life.
Yes.
I had, in their initial, when they first began, they'd been established, I think, a year, and I went there. And it was one of the most wonderful experiences in my whole life because I worked so closely with the Cardinal. Not that we always agreed about, but anyway, it was wonderful working with him and seeing this new community that he loves so much. I think that was his number one priority because as busy as he was, and I didn't take advantage of this at all, but if I would ever call him about something or needed to talk to him, he was there.
Yes.
And I think he had the whole archdiocese, but he was just so, and they have certainly proven that, what a gift to the church they are, the Sisters of Life. Yes. So when he heard that we were thinking about making a new foundation, he said, well, come to New York we had a year of prayer and discernment, and all of that just worked out so beautifully. Okay.
Once again, Mother, how did we find a place to stay in New York? Okay. And this will tie in with the previous podcast that you really do need to listen to, where Mother Assumpta tells more of her life story. Okay.
Well, we were all the four of us were in different areas. So we all met together in the community of the Sister Servants of the Eternal Word in Birmingham, Alabama, which my own sister was the superior. We met there. And then from there, we were going to go to New York. And so anyway, it was just interesting how this happened. And so we came together. What was your initial question?
And so how did we live there?
Okay. Here's what happened. One of the sisters in the community had how God took care of this. She said, why don't you live in my parents' barn? They live in Purchase, New York. Peter Flanagan and Bridget Flanagan, my parents, they have a barn on their property. Now, I want the audience to know this is not just a barn. This was a beautiful barn. We all had private rooms, and
it was incredible. A great barn. We loved it.
But anyway, so I asked the Cardinal about this. He said that would be good because the Cardinal didn't have any place for us to stay. We had our own plans, but God just took over the plans. So we said, this is great. So we went there. The Cardinal lent us a tabernacle. We had a beautiful little chapel and a former horse stall. It was the one. So we had time to pray. We had time to play. We had, it was beautiful property. It was lovely in Purchase, New York. So we were there and we had a year to pray about it. The Cardinal gave us a marvelous canon lawyer because he wanted us to do everything correctly. And so his canon lawyer worked with us to make sure that we do everything correctly according to canon law and what the Vatican would approve of. We had a year to pray and work on our constitutions. And by Christmas time, we knew we had everything ready. And we knew that this is certainly what God will for us. And so in January, I think, is that when we got everything all settled. And so on February 9th, 1997, in the private chapel of St. Patrick's in New York, Manhattan, Cardinal John O'Connor established us as a Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. But I have to get Tom Monaghan in there.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, I guess maybe I'm jumping the gun.
I was going to say.
Let me go about the Mass. Okay. Well, maybe we can go back to Tom Monaghan because he kind of goes into our foundation. Okay.
Okay, but I was going to go back a little bit to some of the beautiful memories that we have in New York. As our listeners and viewers do know, Mother, that the Dominican life is very balanced. And so you had mentioned this. You said we had time to pray. We began with our Eucharistic adoration hour, even there, thanks to Cardinal O'Connor lending us his beautiful tabernacle. And This just conjures up such beautiful memories and such warm thoughts of how God was guiding us because we didn't know the end until we were there. Yeah. And yet, as you mentioned, that urgency and that push and that relentless lover, as some would say. And so we actually had those moments to just really, really pray. And our prayer life, I think, at least I can say, became that much more essential because we knew we were not just building for ourselves. Obviously, we were building for a whole new aspect of the Dominican family to come.
Let me jump in here.
Okay.
Right? It just dawned on me. We were so dumb that we didn't know that you had to have money to do this.
No, that's the only thing we didn't think of.
If you're going to accept postulants, if you got to feed them and you got to educate them all. But anyway, so we had very little money. But the only thing that we needed when we were in Purchase, all we needed was gas and food.
That's right.
And so, gas and food. And so, the Flanagans, we will always be so grateful to them. They had a gas pump on their property. So we could get the gas.
Now, really, how many of you have gas pumps on your property? Yeah. That was a miracle.
And Bridget Flanagan, they gave us a discovery card. So we had our food. We could go get our food. So we were set. We had food and we had gas. And there was a wonderful, was it St. John's Church in Purchase? We would go there for morning mass.
White
and
Plains.
There was White Plains. And there was the most wonderful priest there.
Yes.
That was, we could go to confession there and go to mass every morning. It was wonderful. Even Bridget Flanagan, because we came from the South and New York is cold, she even bought us winter coats. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I still have mine.
That's right. I do have mine too.
And they were wonderful to us.
But again, the balance. So we had that deep, deep prayer, and we would, since it was so close, our rooms were centered really around the chapel and then the work area. And so we would run in and out of the chapel, and you really would get that sense of, I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing. He's doing it through me, whatever. And the thoughts, the decisions, because there is a lot of red tape in founding a new community. And again, Mother, thanks to your particular friendship so closely with Cardinal O'Connor, we had the best of the best. And the fact that he gave us the canon lawyer. But I also want to say, again, in that Dominican balance, that we also had a lot of fun. But I can remember that when word was beginning to get out to the New York Archdiocese, and you already had so many priest friends there, and they would come and they would bring things. But I remember one guest that would come up in a rickety car, and we could kind of hear him coming from a bit of a distance, and we go, oh my goodness, could it possibly be? And he would just every once in a while surprise us, one time with books from Holy Trinity Retreat Center in New York, and so you might know who this is. And another time, remember the car was just filled with bread. And the windows were halfway down, the bread was sticking out. And up comes Father Benedict Groeschel, and he said, well, I want to support you all. If there's anything I can do. The brothers and fathers and I, we just got this huge donation of bread. Well, even the poor can't eat this much bread. So I brought some to you, and we were all grabbing like 10 loaves each and bringing them in. And we were looking at each other, what are we ever going to do with all this bread? There's only 4 of us. But he would come and he would support us, and we would go to visit him. But we really did keep our noses to the grind because it is very difficult and it is a lot of work. And we were blessed with other wonderful friendships in the Dominican order as well.
And secular priests, Father.
Secular priests, definitely.
Would come and say Mass for us in our chapel.
And some Dominicans came from the surrounding area, from Boston, from D.C., from other areas, knowing already our charism, and yet how were we going to, more particularly as Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother, the Eucharist, define our charism in the Dominican order? So, Mother, at this point in time, we have it all written, as you mentioned, and we sent it to Rome. And do you remember that some of the priests and other friends were saying, don't send anything to Rome at Christmas time, and it went out on December 4th. And why did you do that? It'll get lost. And I remember our simple answer, because this was God, this really wasn't us, you have to believe this, was because we were finished. So, of course, we were going to send it to the Holy Father, St. John Paul the Great. And it was January 4th that we received the permission to become a new Dominican community, 1 month to the day that we sent it. And he had gone through all the incarnational aspects of the beautiful season of Christmas in the church and somehow had gotten that done. Mm-hmm. It's just remarkable. Okay, Mother, so then someone else came in and out of the picture. Who was that amazing person?
Goodness. Well, if my memory serves me, I think it was like the day after we arrived in New York. We were going into Vespers and the phone rang. And it was Tom Monaghan. And he had heard, because we'd gone by there just to say hello to him for one reason only, just to say hi. And he'd heard what we were doing. And, of course, his famous story, I want to go to heaven, take as many people as I can with me. And he said, I want to build these little schools. And he said, and I'm listening, and I thought, what does it have to do with us? He said, I want to build these little schools, and I will build them, I will give them to you. And, I thought, you wonder, is this the Holy Spirit, or is it just the devil? I mean, is it a distraction? Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, I listened to him and went into prayer, and I told the sisters, but I called Cardinal O'Connor. I said, Tom Monaghan, I knew Tom Monaghan because I had talked at probably one of the first Legatus meetings here, and he used to have these big First Friday breakfasts, and I had spoken to him, he had visited the Mother House. Anyway, I knew him previously. So anyway, I thought, so I called Cardinal O'Connor, and Cardinal O'Connor, I really believe he had doubts about it. But he said, he always said, just pray about it. Just pray about it. So what happens, Tom Monaghan comes out to Purchase to visit with us. And so we're visiting it. And I remember telling him, I said, Tom, we're educators and we will teach. We will teach. But I said, we are concerned about forming a new community. And he said, well, I will help you do that. Now, we didn't ask for it. We didn't expect it. It had to be of God. I mean, it had to be of God because we had no money. How would we have ever, I don't know, if Tom had not, we would be eternally grateful because if Tom had not stepped into the picture, I don't know what would have happened. But I mean, monetarily. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he would fly us out to Ann Arbor. That's how we got in Ann Arbor. And it would show us property and really. And also sent Frank Scheika out to be his emissary to write down everything we needed. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could list all that we figured that we would need. And Tom came up with it. It's incredible. And so that's how, and to make a short story, that's how we got to, well, anyway, the day that we were founded as a community, this is kind of humorous. The day we were founded as a community in St. Patrick's Rectory Chapel, the night before, they were having this big summit and I guess it was in Naples, Florida, of Legatus. And Cardinal O'Connor was one of the speakers. So Tom Monaghan flew him down in a private plane. And we didn't know this, but Cardinal O'Connor asked Tom Monaghan, he said, I'm establishing the sisters as a community tomorrow. Would you like to come? And so Tom Monaghan said yes. So we were supposed to get there early in the morning of February 9th. And we were sitting in the parlor. And we heard coming down the stairs, clump, 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 clump. We thought it was Cardinal O'Connor. I remember
it like it was now.
We thought it was Cardinal O'Connor. In the parlor watched Tom Monaghan.
That's
we
right.
were shocked. We said, what? It's a good thing he was there. He's the only one who took pictures of the occasion.
That's correct.
And he said, well, Cardinal asked me to, so he flew him up on his private plane but anyway, he was there. He must have stayed at the rectory that night. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he was there when Father Cesario,
Father Romanus Cesario was there.
So anyway, so we established as this community in the private chapel, and then afterwards, Father Cesario and Tom Monaghan took us out to breakfast. So,
right.
but something humorous also happened is that since Tom came from Florida, he did not have. It was February 7th. He did not have a coat. Cardinal O'Connor gave him one of his coats, and here is the millionaire going down the street. The sleeves were too short.
Billionaire.
Tom says he still has that coat.
He always, it's a relic. I mean, I think
he was walking down the street with us with that coat that was too small for him. And, but anyway, it was.
And how beautiful that the Dominicans were represented by Father Romanus Cesario. Father Giles Dimmick, who had been a big part of this, could not come, and neither could Father John Farron, who was over in Rome at the time.
Oh, he was
But
helpful.
the Dominican, our brothers, fathers, Dominicans were represented by Father Romanus Cesario, and it was just the greatest celebration. And I remember right after we made our vows, we went in to St. Patrick's Cathedral for Sunday Mass, and we were standing there, and it was announced that we were a new community, and we looked at the four of us, and we immediately started praying for vocations, and we even brought one back with us from New York.
That's true. That's true. But anyway, I'm glad you mentioned Father Farrell because he was a Dominican working in the Sacred Congregation, who was very helpful to us in making sure that everything was also correct. Right
very
initially,
essential.
before we even started working on anything.
Yes.
And it was this too was providential. We just went, when we were living in Purchase, we went up to see Father Cesario in this community. Was it this community?
Benedictine
And it
area,
happened that Father Farrell just happened to be there that weekend to visit his mother.
Yes.
She was someplace up in the east to visit his mother. So he visited with us. So
everything worked out as God certainly willed. Now, Mother, in closing, our viewers have been seeing, and the listeners need to check it out on our website, sistersofmary.org, these beautiful medals that we as Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, wear. So what a great gift this is. Would you like to please explain that to our viewers and listeners?
Oh, I think you do a better job.
I don't know that you can see it that well, but again, it is on our website, and it's on everything that you could possibly receive that we've touched, so to speak. So it's Mary holding baby Jesus. Remember, we are Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. And behind them is the white host, the Eucharist, and the chalice holding the precious blood. So the white host, the precious body, blood, soul, and divinity, and then the blood in the chalice itself. And above that is the 8-pointed star of St. Dominic. And as you listen more, and this also is on the podcast talking about St. Dominic himself, there is your 8-pointed star, which is very Dominican. And below this is 1997, the amazing year, which was the 3-year preparation for the Great Jubilee that John Paul II set into place and really named that particular year in honor of the Son. And so there are so many things that we can see as our community progresses that we just lived through and kept running through and praying our way through. Mother, we really want to thank you. In her humility, she has not said all the friendships that she has through the years of standing up very strong and very with great prudence and wisdom and fortitude for religious life. And so that is why Cardinal O'Connor and other cardinals, and that is why also Tom Monaghan and people of deep, deep faith certainly were there to help us out, and we needed them, and they're part of our family. And now you are too, because you are watching The Truth Shall Set You Free. God bless you. So if you like the material on this particular podcast, then please click on the next podcast for another fascinating story.